He stood in the dusty corral, ignoring the jeers that mocked his trembling hands and weathered face. The sudden move he made next left every scoffer paralyzed with a dread they never saw coming. The midday sun scorched the rosewood auction yard, where livestock changed hands and reputations were sealed in minutes. Dust danced in the pens, stirred by uneasy hooves and a restless breeze. Buyers in wide-brimmed hats hovered by the prize colt, a gleaming creature promising speed and profit. Nearby, fences rattled with the low hum of negotiations and the echo of hoofbeats. Hope shimmered in the harsh light. Away from the bustle, an older man stood with his arms draped over a rail. His back was stooped, his face weathered by years under scorching suns. He wore a straw hat tilted low, hiding a sharp gaze beneath the brim. Folks called him Archer Cole, though few there knew his name. They only saw an elderly figure, perhaps a retired ranch hand with little to do. Yet an assurance marked the way he observed the animals. Inside the pen, Archer studied. A restless mare paced unevenly, ears pinned back as if warning the world to keep its distance. Her coat was dull, an unremarkable brown, marked by faint scars along her flanks. She moved with a slight lameness that would scare off most buyers. Nearby, a trembling yearling, all knees and nervous eyes, flattened itself against the boards. Now and then, a passerby spared them a glance, then shook a head in dismissal. "Not worth the feed," they muttered. Archer, however, watched with a quiet intensity. His fingers tapped the fence in a measured pattern. A young rancher paused beside him, curiosity flickering across his features. "Don't see the point in watching those two," the man said. "They're done for." "We don't see all that's in a horse by watching it suffer," Archer replied in a low voice. "Sometimes, the finest ones hide behind hard times." The rancher shrugged. "This auction's about sure bets. That colt'll fetch a fortune. That mare there won't earn a dime." A faint smile touched Archer's lips. "Worth ain't always printed on a horse's hide." Before the rancher could respond, the auctioneer's crackling voice boomed through the yard, announcing the next lot, two unfortunate creatures from a rancher who'd given up. "We've got a troubled mare," he called, "and a scrawny yearling that's never been under saddle." Jeers rose around him, and Archer sensed the mare growing more agitated. Her ears snapped back. A muscle flickered along her neck. Bidding opened at a pitiful sum. Nobody wanted to raise a hand. The few remarks were cruel jests, met by ripples of laughter. Even the auctioneer lost his bravado, glancing at the animals with sympathetic unease. The mare slammed a hoof into the pen, boards shuddering under her blow. Archer cleared his throat. "I'll take them," he said. His tone wasn't loud, but it carried enough weight to hush the onlookers. They turned to stare, surprised by who had spoken, an old man in worn boots and dusty jeans. The auctioneer brightened. "We have a bid. Any others?" More chuckles rippled across the crowd, but no one stepped up. The gavel fell, and the deal was sealed. Snide comments followed Archer as he paid. "Should have saved that money," someone snickered. Archer paid no mind, counting out his bills with steady hands. The stable hand thrust two frayed lead ropes at him. One rope barely held the mare, who tossed her head in fierce protest. The other was clipped to the trembling yearling. Guiding them through the throng, Archer felt the weight of skeptical eyes on his back. People parted, their expressions ranging from pity to derision, but Archer walked on, unhurried and unwavering. Outside, in the dusty lot of trucks and trailers, he stopped at a modest stock trailer crusted with rust. The mare snorted, refusing to step onto the ramp. He didn't yank or curse. He set a calloused hand on her neck, waiting until the rigid line of her body eased. Only then did he coax her forward. She gave one hesitant step, then another, as the yearling crowded behind. A handful of watchers stood at a distance, expecting a show of wild resistance. Instead, Archer quietly shut the trailer door, patted the mare's flank through the grating, and climbed into his pickup. The drive out of town led along winding roads under a blazing sun. Archer glanced in the rearview mirror from time to time, ensuring the trailer stayed steady on the rutted asphalt. Now and then, a faint shuffle sounded from within, hooves shifting, bodies adjusting. Eventually, he turned onto a gravel lane lined with sun-scorched grass leading to his small ranch. The place was no palace. Fences had been mended repeatedly, and the barn's paint had peeled to a dull memory of red. But it was home. A dog barked a lazy greeting from under a leaning porch. Archer parked and hopped down, dust trailing his boots as he unlatched the trailer. The mare emerged stiff-legged and wary, nostrils flaring at the unfamiliar scents. The yearling stumbled after her, blinking beneath the relentless sky. Archer's land rolled out in gentle slopes, dotted with oaks that threw scraps of shade. Quiet, wide, and far removed from the tension of the auction yard. He led them to an empty paddock. The mare spun in a quick circle, chest heaving as she tried to take in everything at once. The yearling crept closer to her flank, eyes round with alarm. Archer eased off the lead ropes, letting them drop to the ground. He gave the pair enough distance to remind them no one meant harm. The mare pinned her ears, but halted, uncertain. From behind the barn strode Lily, Archer's granddaughter. In dusty jeans and scuffed boots, she carried the confidence of someone raised among horses. "Grandad," she said gently, slipping through the fence rails. "You brought new ones home?" He nodded. "Picked them up at the auction, figured they deserved a chance." Lily's gaze lingered on the mare's bony hips and the yearling's trembling legs. "They look spooked," she murmured, "like life's taught them not to trust." Archer sighed. "Likely so. We'll see what kindness and time can do." They stood watching the newcomers. Eventually, the mare lowered her muzzle, snuffling at the dirt, a wary step closer to calm. Lily ran a hand over the top rail, frowning at old splinters and nails that needed replacing. She glanced toward the small barn. "Vet check tomorrow." "First thing," Archer replied. "We'll keep it gentle. Let them know they can breathe here." By early evening, the sky softened to a muted gold. Archer fetched buckets of clean water and a flake of hay. The mare pinned her ears but inched forward, thirst overcoming her suspicions. The yearling followed, taking tentative sips. Lily offered a quiet word of encouragement, careful not to crowd them. Night drifted in, painting the horizon with deep blues. Archer led the horses one by one into the barn's open stalls. The mare balked at the door, eyes rolling white, but Archer hummed an old tune beneath his breath, as though speaking a language only horses could truly understand. Slowly, the mare crossed the threshold. The yearling stuck close, too nervous to linger outside alone. After spreading fresh straw, Lily handed the mare a handful of hay. At first, the animal jerked away. Then, step by slow step, she stretched her neck to lip at the offering. Archer watched from the stall door, the dim lantern glow catching the silver strands in his hair. A flicker of pride lit his expression. He was under no illusions that tomorrow would be easy, but the small moment of trust felt like a hard-won victory. Lily set down the pitchfork, a thoughtful crease in her brow. "Grandad, people in town say you've outlived your best horse-taming days." She said it gently, as though not wishing to offend him. "You know how folks talk." A soft chuckle escaped Archer's throat. "They underestimate an old tamer, Lily. Always have. Age doesn't strip a man of what he's learned. A horse can sense the truth of a person better than any gossip." With lantern in hand, he led Lily from the barn, leaving their new charges to settle in. Tomorrow, the veterinarian would come. Tomorrow, More questions would arise about the mare's injuries and the yearling's frailty, but Archer stood ready for the work ahead. He had seen broken horses regain their spirit, and he had witnessed how trust could blossom despite the darkest histories. Outside, the dog wagged its tail in a lazy greeting as they walked toward the house. The hush of evening was a promise, Archer thought, a promise that sometimes the greatest stories begin at the edge of doubt. Those who mocked or doubted him at the auction would soon discover that skill, patience, and a gentle hand could unravel even the toughest knots. He might be old, but he knew a horse's heart when he saw it. And beneath that mare's scars and the yearling's fear, he sensed a resilience waiting to shine. Barely had the night's cool shadows receded when the veterinarian's dusty truck rattled up the lane. Archer was in the barn early, checking the mare's water and coaxing the timid yearling to nibble a handful of fresh grain. The yearling, all spindly legs and wide eyes, leaned tentatively forward, then pulled back as though startled by its own curiosity. Outside, the sky glowed with a faint pink as the rising sun hinted at another blazing day. Archer wiped sweat from his brow, nodding to himself as the routine settled into place. A stocky woman with faded coveralls and hair, pulled into a tight bun, climbed out of the truck. Dr. Rosalind Emery was known for her no-nonsense manner and her soft spot for underfed strays. She greeted Archer with a brief handshake, then glanced around the yard. "You've been busy," she said, noting the newly mended fence rails and the bales of hay stacked neatly by the barn door. Archer only shrugged. There was always more work to do, and it never went away just because a man's back was tired. He led Dr. Emery to the stalls. The mare, watchful, still tense, flicked an ear at the newcomer's footsteps. Light from a high window played across her dusty coat, revealing fresh lines of worry carved by the last few days. Lily appeared from the tack room, wearing an encouraging smile. "Morning, Doc," she said. "We're eager to hear what you think." Dr. Emery set her medical bag on a stool. She began with the mare, gently running a palm along the animal's neck. Archer hovered, noticing the mare's shallow breathing. Though her eyes darted nervously, she didn't jerk away. That small act of tolerance felt like a victory. "She's got a touch of swelling in the hocks," Dr. Emery noted, sliding a stethoscope under the mare's ribs. "Might be from poor nutrition or a hard life before the auction. Scars are mostly superficial, but there's tenderness near her right shoulder. Could be an old sprain never tended properly." Archer nodded grimly. "I suspect she's known more beatings than rest. Didn't look like she ever got a fair shake." "Nothing here that can't improve," Dr. Emery said. Her voice held a flinty determination. "But she'll need a careful feeding program and light exercise to rebuild muscle. No sudden demands." When it was the yearling's turn, Lily offered a soft murmur. The young horse huddled close to the mare, quivering at the stranger's approach. "Hey now," Lily coaxed, extending a palm. The yearling blinked, nostrils flaring, but didn't bolt. Dr. Emery inched forward, measuring the filly's height, checking teeth, feeling the tense muscles along its thin sides. "Underfed," the vet concluded, "and possibly weaned too soon. But the heart rate's strong, eyes are clear. She just needs time, good pasture, and patient handling." She scribbled notes on a pad. "You're giving them a chance at the right moment, Archer." He inhaled, relief loosening the tightness in his chest. For all the mocking talk at the auction, the animals weren't hopeless. Sometimes the simplest care could ignite a spark in what looked like ash. The vet packed her tools, then handed Lily a list of supplements. "Small steps," she advised, shutting the barn's half door behind her. "If she's lame, don't push her. If the filly's anxious, let her be. Animals heal on their own timelines." Archer walked her back to the truck. Before she climbed in, she paused, fixing him with a knowing look. "You've helped more horses than I can count, Archer. Don't let folks' remarks get under your skin." He tipped his straw hat politely. "I've been at it too long to lose sleep over gossip." Yet, as her truck rumbled away, dust swirling in its wake, he couldn't deny a small sting lingered in his mind, remembering the laughter at the auction. People often forgot what a patient hand and knowledge could accomplish. Lily went about preparing feed with the recommended vitamins. Archer took a brush to the mare's flank, one stroke at a time, letting her feel a gentle, steady rhythm. After the first few bristles touched her coat, the mare stomped a hoof in warning, but Archer didn't flinch. She calmed, perhaps puzzled by the man's lack of force. It was in these quiet moments that Archer's old confidence resurfaced. His back might ache more than it did years ago, but he hadn't lost the touch. They named the mare Ebony, an echo of the deeper hue her coat might have held before hard living dulled it. Lily suggested the filly be called Clover, thinking a hopeful name could usher in luck. Archer agreed with a faint smile. By midday, the heat pressed down, cicadas droned in the trees, and the air smelled of dry grass and horse sweat. Archer and Lily spent hours rigging a temporary pen in the shade, wanting to let Ebony and Clover stretch their legs without wandering too far. The older horse paced the perimeter, eyeing every flicker of movement. But she accepted the new space without the explosive panic Archer worried might erupt. Clover ventured timidly behind her, stepping through scattered patches of sunlight. As the afternoon wore on, a pickup rattled onto the property. Archer saw a familiar figure behind the wheel, Clyde Dillard, a rancher from farther down the valley. He was younger than Archer, broad-shouldered and loud, with a quick grin that seldom felt friendly. Archer's mouth tightened. Clyde usually came by with his own agenda. "Hey there, old-timer," Clyde called, climbing out and scanning the new arrivals. "Heard you snagged a pair of scraps from the auction." "Wanted to see the poor beasts myself," Archer forced a polite nod. "Just looking out for the ones nobody else wanted." Clyde sauntered to the fence, hooking his thumbs in his belt loops. "Huh, sure they're not a bigger handful than you can manage?" The question dripped with a mocking tone that set Lily's jaw on edge. "We'll manage fine," Lily said, a note of challenge in her voice. Ebony flicked her ears at Clyde's presence, as if sensing the shift in the air. Clyde clicked his tongue. "Might be simpler to put 'em down if they're too damaged. Sometimes a horse is just done. No shame in that." His gaze lingered on Ebony's worn body, traveling to Clover's trembling flanks. Archer's eyes narrowed. He rested a hand on the fence, though he kept his voice calm. "A horse is done when you've tried every last remedy, every ounce of patience, and they still can't stand. I ain't done that yet." Lily held her breath, noting how Ebony's ears flattened. She worried Clyde's presence would unsettle the mare. But Ebony only stared, as though measuring the newcomer's intent. Clover nuzzled Ebony's hindquarters, seeking reassurance. Clyde shrugged. "Suit yourself. But if you ever need a real rancher's help, call me. Wouldn't want you getting hurt in your old age." He let out a short laugh, ignoring the tension in Archer's posture. Archer didn't bother a retort. He simply turned his back on Clyde and stepped closer to Ebony, brushing his fingers over the horse's muzzle in a gesture of quiet solidarity. Clyde lingered a moment, as if expecting an argument, but when none came, he spat dust from his mouth and headed back to his truck. The engine roared, and he was gone, leaving only a haze of suspicion in the air. Lily huffed in frustration. "He's always got some snide comment. Why does he care what we do with these horses?" Archer sighed. "He's still sour about a deal we made years back. Doesn't understand how a man can handle a horse that isn't perfect on paper." Archer shook his head. "But Ebony and Clover ain't hurting him any." Let him say what he wants. They spent the rest of the afternoon rechecking Ebony's legs, ensuring Clover had enough to eat. At times, Archer paused, gazing at the two horses with a thoughtful frown. He recognized Ebony's restless pacing as anxiety. Perhaps she feared being taken away again. Clover mirrored her mother figure so closely, it was clear the filly had known little security in her short life. He gritted his teeth at the cruelty that might have shaped them. By sunset, they'd coaxed Ebony and Clover back into the barn. Lily doled out fresh water, humming softly as she worked. Archer methodically examined Ebony's hooves, scrubbing away clumps of dried dirt. Each contact made the mare quiver, but she didn't kick out, not once. Archer felt a prickle of pride warming his chest. Exhausted, the pair headed into the house. The dog wagged its tail in the porch light, and Lily draped an arm around Archer's shoulders. She was barely 23, but the farm life had given her strength and a no-nonsense attitude. "They'll be better soon," she said. "I can see it already." Archer patted her hand. "Takes more than skill, Lily, takes heart. If we keep showing them gentle ways, they'll learn we're not a threat." She glanced back at the barn. Inside, Ebony's soft whicker broke the silence, a sound that felt almost grateful. The filly's lighter nicker followed, then quiet. Lily's smile reached her eyes. "You never did lose your touch, Grandad." He managed a wry grin. "We'll see what the morning brings." They ate supper in near silence, each lost in thought. The house was old, its walls filled with memories, photos of Lily's grandmother, Archer's horse trophies from decades past, a worn halter that had belonged to his first mare. Lily gazed at the halter as she cleaned up the plates, and something in her expression turned nostalgic. "Was it always this hard?" she asked. "Healing the ones that come to you so broken?" Archer tilted his head. "It was never easy. But it's worth it when you see them run free again." Night settled in, crickets chirped, and a soft breeze drifted through the open windows. Lily retreated to her small bedroom, leaving Archer at the table with a single lamp burning. Outside, starlight glimmered over the paddock. He pictured Ebony and Clover asleep on fresh straw, or perhaps still awake, uncertain of their new refuge. He thought of Clyde's mocking smile, the auctioneer's relieved voice when selling those unwanted horses, and the hush that fell when Archer made his bid. A twinge of anger flickered in his chest, but it settled into resolve. Age might have bent his back, yet it hadn't bent his will. They all had a lesson to learn. Never underestimate an old tamer who saw value in the forgotten. Morning light drifted through thin curtains in Archer's kitchen, rousing him from a fitful sleep. He'd been dreaming of galloping hooves again, images from years long gone, when the warmth of sunrise finally pulled him awake. Outside, the dog let out a low bark, signaling it was time to feed and water the stock. Archer stretched, feeling a creak in his joints, then dragged on his boots. No matter how his body complained, routine called. He found Lily already at the barn, her hair tied in a loose braid. She stood by Clover's stall, murmuring softly. The young filly stirred in the straw, blinking in the morning glow. Archer couldn't help a faint smile. "You're up early," he said, stepping inside. "Figured the sooner I get here, the better," Lily replied. "They seemed restless last night. I thought I'd check them first thing." Archer glanced at Ebony's stall. The mare watched him with an intensity that was neither relaxed nor openly hostile, as though still deciding who he really was. When Lily unlatched the door, Ebony flicked her ears back, but she didn't step away. Progress, albeit measured in inches, a mixture of relief and anticipation swelled in Archer's chest. He had tamed tough horses before, but these moments always felt pivotal. A single breakthrough in trust could outshine weeks of trouble. After setting out fresh feed, they led Ebony and Clover into the small paddock. The early light brushed their coats, giving Ebony's dull brown a momentary glimmer. Clover, smaller and more skittish, followed close, ears twitching at every stray sound. Archer carried a light lead rope, uncertain if Ebony would panic or accept direction. On a hunch, he tried a few calm steps with the rope draped around her neck, guiding her gently to see if she'd tolerate minimal pressure. At first, Ebony threw her head high, muscles tensed like springs. Archer's pulse quickened, but then, as he maintained a steady hand, the mare let out a snort, eased her stance, and followed a few strides. Archer released the tension immediately, rewarding her with freedom instead of confinement. A principle as old as horse training itself. Show them the right thing, give them space to feel safe. Lily clapped softly. That's the first time she's walked with you without balking. Archer nodded. She's still wary, but we'll build on it. They practiced small segments of groundwork, taking a few steps, stopping, turning in a circle. Each success was followed by praise and a moment of rest. Clover watched from a few yards away, occasionally tossing her head in confusion. Archer motioned for Lily to approach the filly, wanting to see if the younger horse would mirror Ebony's newfound calm. Clover shivered when Lily reached for her mane, but she didn't bolt. "You're all right," Lily crooned. "Nobody here's going to hurt you." Step by tiny step, Lily's hand settled on the filly's neck. That contact, so simple yet so profound, felt like a corner turned. Clover's tense posture eased. She let out a small sigh, almost a surrender to gentle touch. For the next hour, Archer and Lily moved between mare and filly, offering reassurance. Despite Ebony's haunting scars, she allowed Archer's guiding hand. Despite Clover's shaky legs, she softened to Lily's presence. The sun rose higher, heat pressing down, but neither horse seemed as agitated by the heat as they had been by human cruelty in their past. When Archer finally signaled a break, Lily exhaled, wiping sweat from her brow. "They did better than I expected," she said, stepping into the barn's shadow. "I guess every day will be a lesson." Archer gave a tired grin. "All the best horses teach us something. Even the stubborn ones." He leaned on the fence, recalling faint memories of an old chestnut stallion he'd once turned from a wild terror into the best cutting horse in the county. The satisfaction of that success had never faded. He hoped Ebony's story would run along similar lines. Near noon, they heard the crunch of tires on gravel. Lily glanced toward the road, expecting Dr. Emery or a feed delivery. Instead, a sedan with peeling paint pulled up. Out stepped a lanky man in slacks and a rumpled shirt. He walked with uncertain steps, as though he'd never set foot on a ranch before. Archer removed his hat, puzzling over the visitor. "Mr. Cole," the man asked. "Name's Montgomery Reeves. I write for the county paper. Heard a rumor about a battered mare you bought at auction." Archer frowned, not used to reporters sniffing around. Lily exchanged a wary look with him. "We're not exactly front-page news, Mr. Reeves," Archer replied. The reporter attempted a polite smile. "I'm just following a lead. Folks said you rescued some horses nobody else wanted. I thought it might make a good human interest piece. An old hand showing everyone that second chances still matter." Archer's eyes narrowed at the phrase, "old hand," but he kept calm. "I'm no hero. Just couldn't walk away from them." Reeves made a few notes on a small pad. "Could I see the animals?" Lily hesitated, uncertain if Ebony might spook at yet another stranger, but Archer nodded. "Stay by the fence. Don't make sudden moves. We're still building trust." Together, they led Reeves to the paddock. Ebony, feeling the brunt of midday heat, stood in the narrow band of shade near the fence. Clover dozed at her side. The reporter studied them, scribbling in his notebook. "They look better than I expected," he murmured, eyebrows lifting. "Still rough, of course, but not as bad off as I heard." "That's thanks to good feed and calm handling," Lily said. "They've got a long road ahead." Reeves flipped a page. "Any plans for them? Are you going to sell, train them up, or—" Archer set his jaw. "We plan to get them healthy first. Whatever they become, they'll do so at their own pace. Not every horse needs to chase a trophy." Lily shot him a supportive glance. She knew Archer disliked publicity. At that moment, Ebony turned her head, staring straight at Reeves. The reporter tried snapping a quick picture with his phone. The shutter click startled Clover, who jerked upright, nearly stumbling. Ebony pinned her ears, stepping protectively sideways to shield the filly. "Easy," Archer warned, gesturing for Reeves to lower the phone. "They've had a rough past. Don't rush them." Reeves nodded, slipping the device into his pocket. "I'm sorry. Guess I got excited." "Might I ask how you learned to deal with horses like this?" Archer drew a slow breath, remembering bruised shoulders and countless hours with restless colts. "Time teaches you, if you watch and listen. Horses are honest creatures. It's usually people who make them fearful." The reporter looked intrigued. "That's a good quote." He checked his notes. "If you don't mind, I'll put something in the paper about your efforts. Might encourage folks to treat animals better or get help for those they can't care for." "Suit yourself," Archer said, though he suspected gossip would swirl once people read the article. He just hoped Ebony and Clover wouldn't face more intrusions. Reeves took a final look, thanked them, and headed for his car. After he was gone, Lily released a tense breath. "He seemed nice enough, but I worry. You know how folks can twist a story." Archer rubbed the back of his neck. "I ain't keen on fanfare, but maybe it'll do some good. Show people these horses deserve more than pity." They carried on with chores, mindful of Ebony's nerves. Clover, meanwhile, showed a spark of curiosity in the yard, sniffing at fence posts and the old brush pile where the barn cats lurked. Each time the filly extended her comfort zone, Lily's heart lifted. She recognized that every small victory, like a steady halter lesson or a moment of calm around strangers, might shape Clover's entire future. If they could make trust a habit, the filly might outgrow her timid shell. Late afternoon found Archer seated on a wooden stool near the barn entrance, trimming strips of leather to repair a battered bridle. The barn cat slunk by, mewing for attention, and Lily fed it a leftover scrap of chicken. A welcome hush settled in, broken only by soft whickering or the shuffle of hay. Archer realized he felt an ease in the air that he hadn't noticed since the day he brought these horses home. Suddenly, the phone in the house rang. Lily left to answer, her boots echoing on the porch steps. Archer continued cutting leather, half expecting the caller to be Dr. Emery checking in. But when Lily returned, her expression was guarded. "Grandad," she said quietly, "it's Clyde. He wants to come by tomorrow. Said he might have something that'd interest you." Archer's mouth twisted. "That man never stirs up anything good." Lily wrapped her arms around herself. "He didn't say much, just insisted he's got an offer. Should I tell him not to bother?" A spark of stubbornness flickered in Archer's eyes. "No, let him come. I'd rather hear him out than hide. I'm not backing down from any man who thinks these horses aren't worth the trouble." Lily nodded. "All right, we'll handle him." Dusk settled in a long hush of amber light. Archer and Lily worked side by side, bathing Ebony's injured shoulder with cool water. The mare tolerated it better than expected, blowing out a soft breath. Clover snuggled close, muzzle pressed gently to the older horse's side. Archer observed the pair with quiet satisfaction. They were forming a small family of sorts, drawn together by adversity. Night descended, heavy and warm. In the house, Lily and Archer shared a simple meal: beans, cornbread, and leftover greens. The dog dozed at their feet. Outside, cicadas began their raspy chorus. When Lily finished cleaning dishes, she hesitated at the back door. "Clyde's always looked down on us for not running a big operation. I wonder if he'll cause trouble." Archer gave a short laugh. "Let him try. Ebony and Clover aren't harming a soul." He'd do well to remember that. He retired to his rocking chair, lamp flickering on the side table. Though exhaustion tugged at him, he found his thoughts drifting. Ebony's uncertain eyes, Clover's shaky trust, the reporter who might spread their tale to curious readers, and Clyde's cryptic call. Outside, the barn lights were out, the horses presumably settled. Maybe in their quiet stalls, they dreamt of open fields and fresh grass, free of fear. Archer prayed that dream would one day be reality. He closed his eyes, lulled by the chair's gentle creak. Despite the day's progress, he couldn't shake an undercurrent of tension. He had seen how cynics could tear down hope with a few harsh words, but he vowed that in the morning he'd greet Clyde with the same unshakable poise he always carried. No matter how people underestimated him or the horses, Archer Cole knew the truth. A broken spirit could be mended, given a fair shot and a patient soul. The next morning dawned bright and uncomfortably hot, chasing away any lingering chill. Archer was up at dawn again, leaning on the paddock fence. Ebony and Clover stood quietly inside, swishing their tails against persistent flies. Lily soon joined him, a thermos of coffee in hand. They exchanged a few words about the day's tasks, but Archer's mind was clearly fixed on Clyde's impending visit. He disliked confrontation, yet braced himself for whatever angle Clyde might pursue. After feeding the horses, they brushed Ebony's coat. Though still dull, it had lost some of the ragged look from a week earlier. The swelling around her shoulder seemed to have subsided, thanks to daily cold water therapy. Clover nibbled at Lily's sleeve, seeking attention, and Lily gently stroked the filly's forelock. "You've got a friend," Archer observed wryly. "She's warming up to you something fierce." Lily grinned. "Guess I'm the stable caretaker. She knows who slips her the extra handful of oats." They spent much of the morning cleaning stalls, tidying the barn, and checking the fence line. Archer's knee throbbed when he crouched, but he refused to let Lily see him wince. He felt a drive to show that age didn't weaken his resolve. By midday, they'd worked up a sweat under the punishing sun. "Let's take a break," Lily said. "I'll fix us sandwiches inside." Archer nodded, removing his hat to wipe sweat from his brow. He was pulling off his gloves when Clyde's truck roared up the driveway. Gravel crackled beneath oversized tires, sending dust clouds swirling. Archer and Lily exchanged a glance, then walked over to greet him. Clyde hopped out, a smugness to his grin that Archer recognized all too well. "Cole," Clyde said, tipping his hat in mock courtesy. "Hope I'm not interrupting your day." "Just our lunch," Archer responded curtly. Clyde ambled toward the paddock, scanning the horses. Ebony eyed him warily, shifting her weight as if recalling his scent. The memory might have been real or imagined, but Archer didn't like the tension that rippled down her spine. Clover pressed against Ebony's flank, as if seeking shelter. "Still that same pair from the auction?" Clyde asked, hooking a thumb in his belt. "They look better than when you got them. You do have a knack." Archer waited, arms folded. He saw Lily step closer, prepared to shoo Clyde off if he got pushy. "Say your piece," Archer said. Clyde shrugged. "I got wind you're fixin' to keep them. That's all well and good, but there's a fella in the next county hunts bargains. He's willing to pay a fair sum for that older mare, thinks she could be used for light ranch work. He asked me to see if you'd part with her." He paused, letting the offer hang. "Might even throw in a finder's fee for me, if you say yes." Lily's eyes flashed. "She's not for sale." Clyde turned to her, smirking. "Come now, Might be a good deal. She's lame, older than most folks want. This man might take her off your hands. You could focus on the filly. Archer stepped in, voice stiff. You called Ebony worthless last time. Now you want me to shuffle her off to some stranger. Clyde's gaze hardened. I'm giving you an option. Some folks would say an old horse like that costs more in feed than she's worth. You know that, Archer. You taught me the basics of ranch math when I was green. A flicker of regret or annoyance crossed Archer's face. She's staying here, Clyde. That's final. Clyde spread his hands. Suit yourself, but don't complain if she never recovers. Horses like that can be a money pit. We'll manage, Lily snapped, stepping forward. You can go now. Clyde tipped his hat again, though his eyes glinted with irritation. He backed away slowly, offering Archer a thin, knowing smile. Fine, fine. Let's hope you don't regret it. They watched him climb into his truck. With a roar of the engine, he was gone, leaving a foul taste in Archer's mouth. Lily exhaled sharply, shaking her head. That man can't stand seeing you prove him wrong. Archer nodded, looking over at Ebony. The mare tossed her head, blowing through her nostrils. He wondered if she sensed the tension. He thrives on doubt, Archer said quietly, and I refuse to give him the satisfaction of seeing me cave. Lily laid a hand on his shoulder. Let's get those sandwiches. We'll feel better when we've got some food in us. They retreated to the house, where Lily assembled simple ham and cheese sandwiches. Archer ate in silence, replaying Clyde's words in his mind. Might even throw in a finder's fee, he thought bitterly. What a cheap angle. Was Ebony just a commodity to him? After lunch, Lily went to gather a tarp from the barn, planning to set up extra shade in the paddock. Archer took that moment to lean back in his kitchen chair, kneading the tight muscles in his neck. He couldn't deny a wave of exhaustion pressing in. All at once, Ebony's care, Clover's skittishness, and Clyde's meddling felt heavier than ever. Still, as he rose and glanced through the window, he saw Ebony nuzzling Clover's shoulder, a fragile sign of affection that made his chest tighten with renewed purpose. In the grand scheme of ranch life, the bond between them was growing day by day. He couldn't imagine uprooting Ebony or leaving her at the mercy of some unknown rancher who might not have patience for her battered spirit. He gathered himself and stepped onto the porch. Outside, Lily stretched the tarp between two fence posts, tying it securely. Archer helped secure the final corner, giving Ebony and Clover a shaded corner where the sun couldn't scorch them all afternoon. The horses ambled beneath, Ebony still favoring her right leg slightly, but walking with more confidence than she'd shown days ago. As the heat intensified, Archer decided to walk Ebony around the paddock again. He attached a lead rope to her halter, speaking softly. She snorted, ears twitching, but followed as he guided her around the perimeter. A couple of times, she hesitated near the gate, as though recalling the day she arrived. Archer maintained gentle pressure, never jerking the rope. Eventually, Ebony conceded each time, lowering her head in a small gesture of trust. Lily, meanwhile, stood with Clover, continuing to stroke the filly's neck. The young horse leaned into the touch, nosing Lily's shoulder. "She's so sweet," Lily murmured. "It's hard to imagine anyone giving up on her." Archer remembered the desperate scene at the auction. No one bidding, not even to salvage the animals. They saw them as a loss, he said. But sometimes you have to look past the immediate to see what might be. After another lap, Archer removed the lead rope, patting Ebony's shoulder. The mare shifted away, but not out of fear. She seemed content to stand near him, side by side, gazing at the distance. The summer haze rippled over the hills, and a faint breeze stirred dust along the road. Archer closed his eyes for a moment, savoring the hush. That hush, to him, was the heart of ranch life. the unspoken bond between man and horse, the calm acceptance of each breath. Evening arrived with a mild breeze rustling the scrubby trees. Archer and Lily retreated to the barn once more, ensuring water buckets were topped off. Clover drank greedily, her thirst magnified by the heat. Ebony lipped the surface of the water, taking long gulps. Lily ran a hand down the mare's neck, checking for signs of fresh sweat or inflammation. Finding none, she breathed easier. They hauled hay into the stalls, piling fresh straw. By the time they finished, both Ebony and Clover looked ready to settle in for the night. Lily stood by the stall door, reflecting. Do you think Ebony might make a real riding horse someday, or is it just enough that she recovers? Archer leaned a forearm on the top rail. I think she could, if she's given the right training and time, but it's not a priority. If her shoulder never heals enough for riding, she can still live well here. Lily nodded. You know, Grandpa, you could have sold her today and made a bit of money, but you didn't. That says a lot about why you do this. He smiled faintly. Money's short-lived. A horse's trust is worth far more to me. Night descended in a slow cascade of purple and gold. As Lily headed to the house, Archer lingered by the barn a while, letting darkness envelop him. Summer crickets sang softly, and the sky filled with stars. He thought of how Ebony's eyes once reflected only fear, how Clover's entire body had trembled at the slightest approach. Now, they were calmer, showing the faint bloom of security. He muttered a quiet thanks to the silence, remembering all the nights he'd shared such moments with other horses over decades past. Finally, he crossed the yard to the porch, where the dog wagged a sleepy tail. Upstairs, Lily's light flicked off. Archer sank into his rocking chair, lulled by the gentle swaying. He wondered whether Clyde would make more trouble. Perhaps the reporter's story might bring curious onlookers or calls from folks wanting to pry into Ebony's background. But for tonight, Archer let worry slide away. The hush of the land was his comfort. The knowledge that a small victory had been won, Ebony and Clover were safe, at least for now, and that was enough. Over the next few days, Archer made a routine of rising well before the sun. He'd shuffle out to the barn, shoulders stiff but mind alert, and peer over the stall doors. Each morning, Ebony's eyes followed him with a touch more calm than before, and Clover would nicker softly at the sound of his footsteps. It was a rhythm he'd come to value, the hush of dawn, the scent of hay, and the hope that with every sunrise, these horses healed another tiny piece of themselves. Lily was no less devoted, though she managed to grab an extra hour of sleep on occasion. She'd wander into the barn later, rubbing her eyes and stifling yawns, only to beam with pride whenever she witnessed the progress Ebony and Clover made. The filly, in particular, had come to expect Lily's gentle presence. As soon as Lily arrived each morning, Clover would angle her head, almost seeking the warm stroke of a hand. They expanded the horse's world by letting them graze in a section of pasture Archer had fenced off. The grass there was a bit sparse, but enough to keep Clover entertained, her muzzle twitching at every tuft. Ebony stood guard, one ear always pointed toward Clover. Occasionally, Archer would see the mare's ears flick in confusion at her own willingness to watch over another. Yet Ebony had taken on a protective air. Maybe she felt she owed something to the young filly who trusted her so completely. One sweltering afternoon, Lily decided Clover was ready for a brief lesson in wearing a halter. They'd mostly led the filly around by slipping a rope across her neck, but now Lily wanted to introduce the real thing. Archer stood by, arms folded. "Go slow," he cautioned. "She's come far, but skittish memories can flare up." Lily nodded, approaching Clover with the halter in plain sight. The filly snorted, stepping back. Ebony stiffened, preparing to intervene, but Archer murmured a low reassurance, letting her know they meant no harm. Lily held out her free hand, letting Clover sniff. When the filly's muscles relaxed, Lily gently lifted the halter. One quick, fluid motion later, it settled across Clover's delicate head. The filly jerked, startled, but Lily soothed her with a gentle rub behind the ears. Archer smiled. "There you go, girl. Easy as can be." Clover's nostrils flared, but she didn't bolt. Her eyes seemed to say, "I'm uncertain, but I trust you." Lily beamed, patting the filly's neck. After a moment, Clover shook herself, as though shaking off the last of her apprehension. Then she stood calmly, halter in place. Archer took a few steps back and caught Ebony's gaze. The mare watched intently, her tail swishing. Archer wondered if, somehow, Ebony recognized Lily's kindness from her own growing comfort with Archer. That horse had once been tense at every touch. Now she followed him through the paddock with minimal urging. Late that same day, a battered postal truck chugged up the lane. An older man in a faded uniform hopped out, waving a brown envelope. He handed it to Archer without much ceremony and took off, leaving a swirl of dust. Lily, curious, leaned over Archer's shoulder as he opened it. Inside was a folded newspaper page, clipped and highlighted. Archer's brow furrowed. He recognized the county paper's masthead and quickly spotted the article bearing the byline of Montgomery Reeves. Bold letters proclaimed, "Local horseman defies the odds. Rescuing auction rejects for a second chance." Lily read aloud, voice filled with cautious excitement. Veteran horse trainer Archer Cole, known for his gentle hand and unwavering patience, recently acquired 2 neglected horses from a nearby auction. Despite doubts from onlookers, Cole believes these animals have untapped potential, proving that skill and empathy can triumph over cruelty. She paused, glancing at Archer. "This is actually kind of nice." Archer's face remained guarded. "Let's see the rest." She skimmed further. The article mentioned how Ebony and Clover arrived in poor condition, how Archer had refused to let them be discarded, and how he worked daily to rebuild their trust. It ended with a note that local folks could learn a thing or two from such compassion. Lily exhaled, folding the paper. "This might be good press for us," she said. "People could see there's more to horses than just their resale value." Archer nodded, though he worried about attracting nosy visitors. If it encourages folks to treat their animals better, so be it. "But I don't need a parade." In the days that followed, they did get a small trickle of visitors. A retired teacher from town drove up just to meet the horses she'd read about, bringing a tin of cookies for Lily. A mother with 2 wide-eyed children stopped by, politely asking if her kids could see the miracle horses. Archer allowed a brief visit, ensuring Ebony and Clover wouldn't be stressed by the chatter. While the filly only warily sniffed the children's outstretched hands, Ebony kept a watchful eye, though she surprisingly showed no aggression. Archer counted it as another step forward. Not all visitors were benign. One afternoon, Lily spotted a vehicle lingering at the edge of their property. It idled with the engine running, windows tinted, never moving closer. After a few minutes, it turned around and drove off. Lily's stomach tightened with unease, but she didn't mention it to Archer, guessing he had enough on his mind. Clyde's meddling was enough trouble already, and no sense stirring more worry without proof of bad intentions. As August heat wore on, Archer began training Ebony with a light saddle. He kept the sessions short, just enough to let her feel the gentle weight. At first, Ebony tensed, eyes rolling white as though expecting pain. Archer murmured soft words, letting her circle the paddock at her own pace. He never cinched the girth too tight. If Ebony balked, he paused, giving her time to process each new sensation. "You've still got it," Lily teased one afternoon, leaning on the fence. Ebony moved at a slow walk, the saddle resting snugly on her back. "I remember you gentling that big Appaloosa stallion way back when." Archer laughed under his breath. "I was younger then. Had more spring in my step, but the methods don't change. Patience, consistency, and no shortcuts." After a few minutes of calm pacing, he unbuckled the saddle, allowing Ebony a chance to breathe. She snorted, shaking off tension, then lowered her head to sniff the saddle blanket. Archer took that as a good sign. It wasn't pure acceptance, but it wasn't outright fear. That was enough for one day. Clover, too, continued her transformation. Lily led her around with the halter on, showing her the boundary of the ranch yard and letting her sniff the dog's old food bowl. The filly jumped back at any metallic clank but recovered quickly when Lily offered reassurance. Archer watched these interactions with quiet satisfaction. He believed that someday Clover might grow into a gentle riding horse for Lily, or simply a beloved companion who roamed the pasture in peace. Both outcomes were fine by him. Toward the end of that week, Dr. Emery returned for a follow-up exam. She marveled at Ebony's improving muscle tone, measuring the mare's stride and checking for soreness. "Still a bit stiff in that shoulder," she said, "but you've clearly lessened the inflammation. Keep up whatever you're doing." Archer rubbed Ebony's neck. "We're taking it slow. Don't want to re-injure anything." Clover eyed the vet with mild curiosity, no longer as terrified by new faces. Dr. Emery smiled. "You've done wonders," she told Lily. "A little kindness goes a long way, huh?" Lily grinned. "Farther than some folks ever realize." That evening, Lily proposed they let Ebony and Clover stay out in the pasture overnight, the sky clear and the air cooler than usual. Archer hesitated, concerned about coyotes or other nighttime disruptions, but the fence was solid, and Ebony's protective instincts might do more for Clover than a stall could. Finally, Archer agreed, albeit reluctantly. They spread hay near a sheltered corner under a low oak, filled water troughs, and left the gate open to the barn if Ebony decided to wander back inside. Long after Lily turned in, Archer remained perched on the porch, rocking gently in his old chair. The stars cast a faint silver glow across the fields. From his vantage, he could see movement in the pasture, Ebony's silhouette grazing with that distinct nodding motion, and Clover shadowing her. A sense of calm settled over Archer. It was moments like this that reminded him why he'd never left the ranch life, despite the hardships and heartbreaks. There was something honest about a horse under a moonlit sky, forging a slow path toward wholeness. His thoughts wandered to Clyde, whose absence had been a strange relief. Perhaps the man had realized Archer wouldn't budge, or maybe Clyde was biding his time, waiting for Ebony to show some flaw he could exploit. Archer tried not to dwell on it. He'd learned that cynics often retreated once they realized they couldn't crack a person's resolve. Even so, Archer kept an ear open for any rumble of a truck pulling onto his land. Eventually, he stood, letting the porch step creak under his weight. The dog raised its head briefly, then settled again with a lazy thump of its tail. Archer took one final look at the sleeping pasture, Ebony and Clover side by side, gently swishing their tails. A faint contentment radiated from that scene, as though the air itself whispered assurances. When Archer finally crawled into bed, the night's quiet enveloped him like a balm. He drifted into a dreamless sleep, content in the knowledge that the horses were adapting, healing, and, most importantly, trusting him. Tomorrow would bring new tasks, fresh challenges, and possibly unforeseen trials. But for now, he let the day's worries slip away, heart lightened by the simple truth those two neglected souls had found safety here, and as long as Archer had breath, no one would take that from them. Morning found Ebony and Clover at ease in the pasture. A soft breeze rustled the dry grass, carrying hints of a cooler day ahead. Archer, stepping out of the barn, paused to watch the pair. In the past, Ebony would bolt at the sight of a stranger near her fence line. Now she only raised her head in mild interest. Clover, still unsure of the world, stayed close to the mare, comforted by Ebony's presence. Archer drew a long breath, pleased by how far they had come since that fateful day at the auction. Lily joined him, arms folded against the crisp air. "I dreamed I was teaching Clover to trot on a lead line," she said with a small laugh. "Woke up half convinced it had already happened." Archer nodded toward the filly. "You'll get your chance. She's coming along. Maybe in a week or two. We'll try a gentle walk with you holding the rope. See how she responds." They headed to the shed where tools were kept, planning to fix a few loose boards along the pasture fence. Archer gathered nails, while Lily lugged a battered toolbox. Days earlier, he'd noticed sections of the fence leaning, needing a firm hand to secure them. They walked down the fence line together, side by side. Clover watched them from a distance, ears flicking at every hammer strike. Ebony grazed near the water trough, occasionally lifting her head to track Archer's slow progress with the nails. Lily noticed the mare's alert posture and smiled. "She's really tuned into you," she said, "almost like she wants to help." Archer hammered another nail. "She's learned I don't aim to hurt her. That's half the battle, building that trust." They worked steadily through the morning. Lily wiped sweat from her brow. Though the breeze held a hint of fall, the sun's warmth clung to the fields, and each nail pounded into place felt like a minor victory against wear and tear. At midday, they stopped to rest in the shade of a stunted willow tree. Archer passed Lily a canteen, taking a swig himself before leaning back against the rough bark. A truck engine sounded from the gravel lane, and Lily stiffened. "We expecting anyone?" she asked. Archer shook his head. "Not that I know of." They set aside the toolbox, walking cautiously to the front yard. A small, rusty pickup had parked near the barn, its driver stepping out with a pleasant wave. He appeared to be in his 40s, with a broad smile and a handshake that felt genuine. "Hello there," he called. "Name's Randall Peters. I help run a youth riding program a few counties over. Heard about your rescue horses from that newspaper piece. Thought I'd see if you might have any interest in letting some of our kids meet them." Archer glanced at Lily, noting the cautious yet curious look in her eyes. "What exactly are you asking?" Archer said slowly. Randall cleared his throat. "We focus on teaching kids about horse care, respect, responsibility, that sort of thing. We don't have many examples of horses that overcame mistreatment. I thought your two might show the children how patience can change an animal's life. I wouldn't want to do anything stressful for the horses. Maybe a short visit one weekend." Lily's face softened. "That sounds nice. But Ebony and Clover aren't fully recovered. We wouldn't want them overwhelmed." Randall nodded. "Understood. We're not talking about crowds of people or rowdy kids. Just a handful who could benefit from seeing how you've brought these horses back. We'd supervise everything, keep it low-key." Archer weighed the idea. It aligned with his belief that compassion should be shared. Yet he worried about whether Ebony might react poorly to a new group of strangers, especially children. In the old days, he'd have jumped at a chance to teach. But now caution tugged at him. "Give us some time," Archer replied. "We'll think about it and let you know." Randall passed him a small business card. "My number's there. If you decide to go for it, just call. No pressure." He cast a final look toward Ebony, who lingered near the fence, her dark eyes reflecting quiet curiosity. "She's a beauty," he said softly. "Glad she got a second chance." When Randall drove off, Lily tucked the card into her pocket. "What do you think, Grandpa?" "I kind of like the idea." Archer scratched his chin. I do too, but Ebony's come a long way. I don't want to push her. Let's see how she handles visitors for another week or two. If she stays calm, maybe we can schedule something small. They returned to their fence repairs, but Archer's mind whirled with the possibility. He had taught horse care to young ranch hands decades before, yet it had been a while since he'd opened his place to a formal group. A ripple of cautious hope rose in him. If Ebony and Clover could inspire kindness in a handful of kids, perhaps that was worth the risk of a little disruption. That afternoon, Lily devoted time to Clover's halter training. She introduced a lightweight lead rope, guiding the filly in a gentle circle. At first, Clover planted her hooves, uncertain about walking in a structured pattern. Lily patiently coaxed her forward. After a few false starts, the filly took tentative steps, following Lily's soft commands. Archer observed from the fence with a nod of approval. Ebony, meanwhile, paced nearby, muzzle quivering at the rope's movement. She watched with what Archer could only describe as a motherly concern. When Clover momentarily panicked at a flapping piece of tarp, Ebony nickered, trotting over to stand between Clover and the perceived threat. Archer chuckled under his breath. They look out for each other. Lily rubbed Clover's neck. That's what families do, she said, even if it's a funny sort of family. As evening light descended in a wash of orange and pink, Archer decided to work with Ebony on wearing the saddle again. He moved calmly through the motions, letting her sniff the blanket, then the saddle itself. She flinched at first contact, but relaxed under his gentle hand. Once it was cinched, he led her around the paddock. She walked willingly, ears swiveling at each passing gust of wind. Archer kept the session short, removing the saddle before any tension could build. It's like she almost expects pain, but finds none, Lily observed. Every day, she's more sure we won't hurt her. Archer patted Ebony's flank. That's the key, proving over and over that we're safe. Takes longer to unlearn fear than to learn it. Night came quietly. The fields glowed under a crescent moon. Archer and Lily supped on roasted vegetables and biscuits, their conversation drifting back to Randall Peters and his youth program. Lily was enthusiastic about letting children see Ebony and Clover's transformation, but Archer voiced his concerns about potential setbacks. Finally, they agreed on a plan. In a week's time, if the horses maintained steady progress, they'd invite Randall out with a small group. Maybe 4 or 5 kids at most, Archer said. I don't want Ebony swarmed. Lily promised to handle the logistics. She could already envision the kids learning to brush Clover or offering treats while Archer demonstrated proper horse handling. The thought brought a hopeful spark to her eyes, something Archer couldn't help but find infectious. The following morning, Lily called Randall and arranged a date. He thanked her warmly, assuring her they'd keep everything relaxed. Archer felt a knot of anticipation tighten in his stomach, but Lily's confidence reassured him. Over the next days, they continued their regular routine, mindful not to push Ebony or Clover too hard. Each success built a foundation for what Archer hoped would be an uneventful visit. Word traveled fast in their small community. A neighbor stopped by to comment on the guest appearance Ebony and Clover might be making. Lily fielded curious calls from 2 families who wondered if they could tag along. She politely declined, determined to keep the gathering small. Archer sensed a sudden spotlight shining on his quiet ranch, which made him uneasy, but he bit back his misgivings. If Ebony and Clover could handle it, so would he. The week slipped by in a flurry of grooming sessions, fence checks, and short saddle work for Ebony. Clover began to understand the lead rope, though she still spooked at unexpected clatters or quick movements. Lily took it slow, offering treats to reward calm reactions. Archer quietly admired his granddaughter's resolve. She had a knack for connecting with animals, a patient heart that mirrored his own approach. On the eve of the planned visit, Archer found himself wide awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Flashes of old memories played in his mind. Cold-starting clinics he'd led years ago, a timid boy too afraid to climb a mounting block, an injured mare who'd once refused to let him near her. He recalled how each scenario had tested his patience, teaching him that success was rarely linear. A horse might leap forward one day, then regress the next. He learned to measure progress over weeks, not hours. He rose with the first hint of dawn, slipping outside to check on Ebony and Clover. They were already awake, snuffling the ground for stray bits of hay. The sky gradually lightened, and Archer leaned against the paddock fence. Letting the cool morning air clear his head, he resolved to trust the process. These horses had shown resilience before. They could handle a small group of curious kids. When Lily emerged, still buttoning her jacket, Archer gave her a nod. "Today's the day. Let's do our best," she smiled, her own nerves evident in the pinching of her shoulders. "They'll be all right. And if not, we cut it short. No harm done." They busied themselves with chores, double-checking water troughs, sweeping the barn aisle, and preparing a quiet corner where children could watch Ebony and Clover without spooking them. Archer selected a short, sturdy mounting block for demonstrations, though he had no intention of letting the kids ride Ebony. It was more to show them the tack and give them a sense of proper posture around horses. Late morning brought a small convoy of vehicles. Randall hopped out first, greeting Archer and Lily with a wave. 4 children followed, their ages ranging from about 8 to 12, each wearing jeans and boots. Their wide eyes shone with excitement. Archer's chest fluttered with mixed pride and apprehension, but Lily gestured for them to remain calm, to speak softly. From the paddock, Ebony and Clover watched the procession approach. Archer noticed Clover take a few uneasy steps behind Ebony, but she didn't bolt. Ebony stood with ears pricked forward, wary yet not panicked. Randall led the children to the fence, reminding them to keep their voices low. Lily introduced them to the horses, explaining briefly how both animals had been neglected and were recovering. The kids peered through the rails, expressions softening as Ebony sniffed the air in their direction. Archer inhaled deeply, bracing for the next phase. He stepped into the paddock and beckoned Ebony, speaking in the mild, comforting tone she knew. The mare ambled closer, stopping a few feet away. Lily opened a gate to let one child, a serious-faced boy, slip inside. The boy held a brush, his hands trembling with excitement. Randall crouched next to him, guiding his approach. A hush fell as Ebony sniffed the boy's outstretched palm. The boy's eyes lit with a joy Archer recognized well, the wonder of a first contact. Carefully, he ran the brush across Ebony's flank. The mare flinched once, then stood still. Archer let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. So far, so good. A tremor of relief coursed through Archer as he watched the boy gently brush Ebony's flank. The mare stood still, breathing a bit faster than usual, but not fleeing or pinning her ears. Lily stood behind the fence with the other 3 children, instructing them in hushed tones on how to approach a wary horse. Randall observed closely, prepared to intervene at any hint of trouble, yet Ebony remained calm, her dark eyes flicking between Archer and the child, as if seeking confirmation she was safe. Clover, meanwhile, edged closer to Ebony's shoulder, peering at the strangers with wide, curious eyes. A girl with braids and a shy smile pointed at Clover. "Can I brush the baby one?" she whispered, half afraid of breaking the stillness. "We'll let her come to you first," Lily said softly. She opened the gate just enough for the girl to enter, guiding her to stand near Clover without crowding the filly. Clover tossed her head, uncertain, but one glance at Ebony seemed to ground her. After a moment, the filly lowered her nose to sniff the child's outstretched fingers. Randall's smile lit his face. Beautiful, he murmured. Now, keep that brush gentle. Horses are sensitive. The girl nodded, then timidly began stroking Clover's flank. The filly quivered, shifting her hind legs, but Lily placed a hand on her withers, steadying her. Archer noted how Clover's body relaxed under Lily's touch. Some fraction of the filly's old fears remained, but they no longer ruled her every movement. The months of patient care were paying off. Little by little, the children took turns brushing Ebony and Clover. Archer stayed watchful, reading every flick of Ebony's ears and each shift of Clover's hooves. Now and then, a child stumbled or let out an excited squeak. Archer would hold his breath, waiting to see if Ebony would startle or bolt. Yet each time, the mare only tensed momentarily and then exhaled, as though telling herself that things were different now. These humans meant no harm. Randall approached Archer at the fence, voice low to avoid startling the horses. "You've done something amazing here. Not many would take a risk on a battered mare and a frightened filly. But look at them now." Archer gazed at Ebony, memory flashing back to that dusty auction pen, the mare's eyes glazed with distrust and exhaustion. The transformation felt both dramatic and subtle, day by day, fear giving way to acceptance. "They did the real work," he replied quietly. "I just made sure no one forced them back into misery." A soft laugh escaped Randall. "Mind if I snap a few pictures for our group's newsletter? We like to show our donors how the kids learn firsthand about rescue horses." Archer hesitated. Pictures could draw more attention than he wanted. Then again, Ebony and Clover's story was already out there. Maybe a few photos wouldn't hurt. "All right," he said. "Just be careful not to spook them with the flash." Randall pulled out his phone, adjusting settings to disable the flash. From a respectful distance, he captured shots of the children brushing the horses, Lily teaching them proper hand placement, and Archer standing quietly by Ebony's head, offering a steady presence. Between clicks, Clover lifted her ears at the sound, but with Ebony so calm, the filly soon decided the phone posed no threat. Eventually, Archer noticed Ebony swishing her tail more forcefully and pawing at the dirt. Subtle signals that she was tiring of the interaction. Clearing his throat, he gestured for Lily and Randall to guide the children out of the paddock. "All right," he said gently. "They've done well, but they need a rest. Let's give them some space." A few murmurs of disappointment arose, but the kids obeyed, backing away with starstruck expressions. One of the older boys, tall and lanky, patted the fence. "Thank you, Ebony," he said softly, as though acknowledging the mare's cooperation. Archer felt a tug at his heart. It meant something for Ebony to have that recognition after all her suffering. With the children safely outside, Ebony shook her mane and gave a low nicker, stepping around the paddock as if to reclaim her personal space. Clover followed, ears pricked. Lily latched the gate, beaming. "That went better than I hoped." Archer nodded. "No panic, no spooks. I'd call it a victory." Randall gathered the children by the barn, praising them for their calm behavior. He invited Lily to give a short talk about grooming and horse care. She obliged with obvious delight, holding up a brush to demonstrate correct angles and pressure. The kids listened intently, though their eyes often wandered back to Ebony and Clover. Archer leaned on a post in the background, letting Lily shine. He recalled how she'd always loved explaining ranch life to city friends, even as a teenager. Now, she had a real chance to pass on that enthusiasm to the next generation. When Lily finished, Randall urged the children to thank their hosts. One by one, they expressed gratitude, shy and sincere. Archer tipped his hat in response. "Hope you learned a thing or two," he said, clearing his throat. "Horses have big hearts if you give them a chance." The group piled back into their cars, leaving a warm hush in their wake. Lily exhaled, leaning on the barn door. "We did it," she said, relief easing the tension in her shoulders, and Ebony and Clover handled it wonderfully. Archer glanced at the paddock. The horses were grazing side by side, apparently untroubled by the morning's events. "Couldn't have asked for better." He paused, then smiled faintly. "You were good with those kids. You've got a teacher's knack." Lily ducked her head, a pleased flush on her cheeks. "I just remember how you taught me growing up. Seems right to pay it forward." Archer turned his attention to Ebony's shoulder, noticing a subtle stiffness in her stride. The mare didn't appear lame, yet each step carried a slight favoring of her uninjured side. "Before we settle in, let's check that joint," he murmured. Lily retrieved a small bucket of cold water and a clean cloth. Together, they approached Ebony. The mare gazed at them calmly, her tail flicking at passing flies. Archer ran a hand gently down her leg, applying gentle pressure around the shoulder. Ebony shifted, but didn't jerk away. "Feels warm," Archer muttered, "but not swollen. Might just be the extra attention she got today." Lily nodded, pressing the cool cloth against Ebony's shoulder. The mare exhaled, blinking slowly. Clover stepped nearer, sniffing the bucket, as if curious what the fuss was about. Lily giggled. "You'll get your turn, little one." They spent a peaceful half-hour tending to Ebony, then offered both horses a snack of fresh carrots. Ebony crunched hers thoughtfully, while Clover mouthed hers with playful caution, eventually devouring it with an eager shake of her head. Archer always marveled at how small gestures, carrots, a soothing cloth, or gentle words, could bridge the gap between a terrified animal and a trusting companion. After lunch, Lily gathered leftover brushes and supplies, tucking them away in the tack room. Archer stood outside, absorbing the midday sunshine. Randall had already texted Lily a few pictures from earlier, which she shared. In them, Ebony's eyes shone bright, and Clover looked downright regal with the young girl brushing her side. Each photo seemed a testament to progress Archer had hardly dared hope for when he first brought the horses home. He felt a nudge at his elbow. Lily stood there, phone in hand. "You want to see them?" she asked. Archer hesitated, then nodded. She flipped through the images, and Archer stared in silence. There was Ebony, not cowering or flinching, but standing tall among children. Clover, letting a nervous boy reach for her mane. Even Archer himself was captured in one shot, posture straight and confident as he held Ebony's halter. He couldn't recall the last time a photo had shown him looking so determined. "You look proud," Lily remarked quietly, reading his expression. Archer breathed out, a tightness in his chest he hadn't noticed. "I am proud," he whispered. "Proud of them, proud of you, proud that it wasn't all wasted effort." They spent the rest of the afternoon in gentle routines, refreshing water troughs, checking Ebony's range of motion, letting Clover roam the paddock's perimeter on a lead line. Another neighbor dropped by with a bag of apples after hearing about the children's visit. Archer and Lily explained Ebony's dietary needs, promising to ration the treats carefully. The neighbor, an older woman named Mrs. Fisher, patted Archer's arm. "You've got the whole town rooting for those horses," she said. "Never seen folks so interested in a couple of rescues." Archer gave a small chuckle. "It's all Ebony and Clover. They do the inspiring." As evening shadows stretched across the fields, Lily suggested a quick check on the barn cat's new litter of kittens, leaving Archer to handle final chores alone. He found himself drifting to Ebony's stall, though she was out grazing with Clover. Part of him recalled how that space had once been the only spot Ebony felt remotely safe. Now she seemed equally comfortable outdoors. That realization stung a bit with awe. She'd changed from a battered, suspicious mare into a calmer soul, all in a matter of weeks. He stepped outside in time to see the sun sinking low, streaks of orange and red lighting the sky. Ebony and Clover meandered near the fence, silhouettes against the vivid backdrop. It was an image Archer wished he could capture in his mind forever. He walked to them, letting the hush of evening settle. The mare lifted her head, acknowledging him. Clover sidled closer. Archer reached up, gently scratching behind the filly's ears. The young horse leaned into his touch, a trusting weight that warmed his heart. "You two have got more visitors rooting for you than I can count," Archer said softly. "But as far as I'm concerned, the most important thing is that you're home." The wind ruffled Clover's mane, and Ebony gave a low nicker. Archer felt contentment wash over him. Tomorrow might bring more challenges, an unexpected phone call, or perhaps a fresh ache in Ebony's shoulder. Life on the ranch was never static, yet he had faith in the bond they'd forged. They'd stared fear in the eye and worked through it, day by day, brushstroke by brushstroke. When Lily joined him, the last shards of daylight fading, Archer saw pride in her gaze. Without words, they both understood how remarkable this day had been. The children's gentle brushes, Ebony's steady acceptance, Clover's blossoming confidence. Under the wide expanse of twilight, they shared a moment of quiet triumph, knowing full well that tomorrow they would wake and do it all again. The next week unfurled under a canopy of changing weather. One day, a broiling sun baked the pasture until heat shimmered like waves above the grass. The next, dark clouds rolled in, releasing a sudden downpour that pelted the barn roof and transformed the yard into slick mud. Through it all, Archer and Lily never relented in their efforts. Each shift in weather merely offered a new test for Ebony and Clover. When rain came, Lily hurried to herd them into the barn. Clover disliked the roar of thunder, trembling at every low rumble. Ebony, though unnerved, followed Archer's lead rope with minimal resistance, trusting his calm tone. They spent those stormy afternoons practicing simple halter lessons in the barn aisle, free of the wind-driven rain. Lily insisted Clover learn to yield her hindquarters with a gentle tap, a basic skill that helped a horse move safely around people. At first, Clover sidestepped clumsily, trying to spin away, but Lily's patience soon coaxed her into smooth, cooperative steps. Archer was more concerned with Ebony's shoulder. The abrupt temperature changes and occasional dampness seemed to stiffen her muscles, and though she never outright limped, he observed a slight hesitation in her stride some mornings. Dr. Emery advised continued therapy, light walking, occasional cold packs, and minimal weight from the saddle. Archer obliged, refusing to rush. A horse's body was a delicate balance, especially one that had endured old injuries. On one particularly muggy afternoon, between showers, Archer decided to test Ebony's response to a rider's presence. Not to actually mount, he wouldn't risk that yet, but to simulate how it might feel to have a human leaning across her back. He led her into the paddock, where Lily stood by with a watchful eye. Ebony lowered her head, almost as if resigned to a new lesson. "All right, girl," Archer murmured, setting a pad on her back. The mare flicked her ears, muscles twitching under the cloth. He gently added the light saddle, cinching it loosely. Then, rather than hoisting himself up, he draped his forearms across the seat, letting his weight press slightly. Ebony tensed, a shudder rippling through her flank. Archer felt the mare's heart pounding, her body coiled like a spring. Lily stepped forward, laying a hand on Ebony's neck. "Easy," she said, her voice soft. "Nobody's forcing you." The mare exhaled, releasing a shaky breath. Archer stayed draped like that for a few moments, shifting his weight slowly to show Ebony it wouldn't hurt. Then he eased off, uncinched the saddle, and let her walk free. Ebony took a few tentative steps, flicking her tail as though she weren't entirely sure how to feel, yet she didn't bolt, nor did she glare at Archer with the old distrust that once clouded her eyes. "She handled that pretty well," Lily observed, feeding Ebony a small treat as a reward. "When do you think you'll actually try riding her?" Archer considered it. "Only when she's ready. Her shoulder stiffness worries me. Pushing too soon could bring pain or bad memories. We'll give her a few more weeks of therapy and gentle drills." Clover watched from a few yards away, ears pitched forward in endless curiosity. Lily giggled. "She's probably wondering if she's next," Archer smiled. "One day, but not yet. Let her be a youngster a while longer." That evening, after the rain cleared, Lily drifted off to visit a friend in town, leaving Archer alone to finish the day's chores. He meandered through the barn, double-checking each stall, laying extra straw for Ebony and Clover if they chose to come in overnight. He was lugging a fresh bucket of water when a pickup rumbled up the driveway. Archer tensed, expecting Clyde's truck or a new stranger. He peeked out the barn door, relief mixing with curiosity as he spotted Randall stepping down from the cab. "Hope I'm not intruding," Randall called, approaching with a sheepish grin. "Had a bit of free time. Thought I'd see how Ebony and Clover were getting on." Archer didn't mind. Randall had been polite and helpful, and the children's visit had gone well. "No intrusion," he said, setting the bucket down. "We're always busy, but we can spare a minute." Randall shoved his hands into his pockets, glancing around. "I keep thinking about how calm they were with the kids. Some of our older students were asking if Ebony might ever be rideable for basic lessons. They were inspired by her story." Archer leaned against the barn wall. "We're working on getting her comfortable with weight again, but it's slow going. She's not the same as a stable-schooled horse with no bad history." Randall nodded solemnly. "I get it. No rush. I just wanted to mention that if she does become rideable, our program would gladly welcome you both, maybe a demonstration or a special event showing how far she's come." Part of Archer bristled at the idea of Ebony becoming a showpiece. But he recognized Randall's genuine intent to inspire more people to offer second chances to animals. "Let's see where she is in a few months," he answered carefully. "No promises." Randall accepted that with grace. He asked if he could see the horses, and Archer led him to the paddock. Ebony grazed near the fence, mane damp from earlier rain, and Clover nibbled at stray pieces of hay. At Randall's approach, Ebony lifted her head. Archer watched for signs of unease, but the mare stood her ground, ears forward. Randall came to a stop a respectful distance away. "She looks better every time I see her," he said softly. "Her coat's got a shine now, and her eyes, they're not haunted anymore." Archer grunted in agreement, though his heart swelled with pride. "Clover's really grown attached to Lily, too. We might have ourselves a solid horse if we keep shaping her right." Randall lingered a while, chatting about the youth program's upcoming plans. By the time he left, dusk was gathering in a hazy, purple gradient. Archer walked him to his truck, waving goodbye with a civility that hinted at friendship. Though Archer valued quiet solitude, he found it didn't bother him to share updates with someone who genuinely cared about the horse's welfare. Maybe some connections were worth cultivating. After dinner, Archer sat on the porch, rocking gently in the wooden chair that had borne witness to so many of his reflections. The dog dozed at his feet, the crickets chirped steadily, and the sky turned a deep indigo over the rolling pasture. He saw Ebony and Clover's silhouettes in the distance, shifting occasionally as they grazed. The bond between them and their environment felt almost sacred in the soft twilight. His mind strayed to the future. Would Ebony ever gallop freely again, unhampered by memories of pain? Would Clover learn to carry a rider someday without fear? A tinge of worry ran beneath his optimism. Memories could be stubborn foes, especially those forged in cruelty. Yet each new day brought evidence that a compassionate hand could rewrite a horse's narrative. Morning arrived bright, the sky painted with streaks of gold. Lily bustled about, excited to try a new exercise with Clover, walking over ground poles laid out in the paddock. "It'll help her balance, give her something to focus on," she explained. Archer agreed, though he couldn't hide a twinge of nerves. A clumsy misstep might rattle Clover's confidence. Still, he trusted Lily's gentle approach. They spaced 4 lightweight poles in a short row, each about a foot high, so Clover would have to pick up her feet. Lily led the filly to the first pole. Clover sniffed it suspiciously, then stepped over with a tentative lift of her hoof. The second pole made her pause. She sidled away from it, eyes darting in confusion. Archer clucked softly, holding the lead rope, but not pulling. After a moment's hesitation, Clover stepped gingerly over the pole, as though expecting it to jump up and bite her. By the 4th pole, the filly found a bit of rhythm, though her steps were uneven. When she cleared the last one, Lily gave a gentle whoop of encouragement, patting Clover's neck. "Good girl, see, that wasn't so scary." Ebony watched from a corner, ear twitching in curiosity. Sometimes she'd meander closer, as though tempted to try the poles herself. Archer gave her the freedom to observe, suspecting her motherly instinct might nudge her to follow Clover. But Ebony chose to stay put, content with watching for now. They repeated the exercise a few more times, until Clover, though not graceful, navigated the poles without stumbling. The filly even lifted her head afterward, as if proud of her newfound skill. Archer chuckled. "She's got a spark, that one. You can see it every time she realizes she's succeeded." Lily's face glowed. "Makes me want to try even more, like maybe some lunging in a round pen if we had one." Archer glanced around. Their property was modest. The barn had a single corral, not really the proper size for a round pen. "We could rig something," he mused. "Use portable panels if we can find some cheap." "Let me think on it." As midday sun bore down, Archer noticed Ebony stomping restlessly at flies, favoring her right shoulder again. Worried, he and Lily decided to rub in a mild liniment recommended by Dr. Emery. The mare tolerated the application, only flinching when the pungent smell reached her nostrils. Archer massaged gently, feeling the tension in those muscles. With each careful stroke, Ebony's head dipped lower, eyes heavy-lidded with relief. "That's it, girl," Archer murmured. "Keep trusting us." In that moment, a memory flared, the day he'd first brushed Ebony's dusty coat. She'd quivered like a cornered animal. Now she leaned into his hands, seemingly comforted by human touch. The transformation struck him anew. He looked at Lily, who offered a bright smile. No words needed saying. They both felt the triumph of forging a connection once deemed impossible. Late afternoon arrived with a calm hush. Clouds gathered, hinting at another shower. Archer and Lily decided to keep Ebony and Clover near the barn, not wanting them caught in a sudden downpour in the open pasture. As they ushered the horses inside, Archer paused by the fence, gazing down the dusty lane. It had been days since Clyde's last unwelcome visit. Perhaps the man had finally given up. Archer brushed off any lingering apprehension. Better to focus on what was tangible: Ebony's healing shoulder and Clover's newfound confidence. Night fell, the wind carrying a promise of rain. In the barn, Ebony and Clover settled into stalls lined with fresh straw. Lily patted Clover's forehead one last time before latching the door. "Sleep well, sweetheart," she murmured. Archer set a water bucket down and took a final look at Ebony. The mare blinked slowly, then lowered her head, unperturbed by the thunder rumbling in the distance. He and Lily retreated to the house, the barn light glowing behind them like a beacon. Over a simple supper, they talked about possible future goals. Maybe a mild trail ride for Ebony in another month if all went smoothly, or a small local event to introduce Clover to more of the outside world. Both ideas were still distant dreams, yet they lit up Lily's eyes, filling her with excitement. Archer nodded along, feeling a guarded optimism. Horses, he knew, had a way of teaching humility. Just when you thought you had it all figured out, a setback might surface. But for now, hope rang loud. Ebony and Clover showed no signs of going backward. The storms would pass, and they'd endure. He thought again of Randall's words. They're not haunted anymore. As thunder crackled above, Archer gazed through the window, reassured by the barn's solid outline. Inside that simple structure lay a testament to resilience. He couldn't predict what tomorrow would bring, but he was certain of one thing: they wouldn't face it alone. Ebony and Clover were no longer auction rejects. They were part of this ranch, and in their steady progress, Archer felt renewed purpose. Age might slow his steps, but his resolve had never been stronger. A thick morning mist clung to the ground as Archer stepped onto the porch, the boards creaking under his weight. The ranch lay hushed in a pale grey light, and for a moment he savored the quiet. Another day, another chance for Ebony and Clover to take small steps toward healing. He rolled his shoulders, trying to shake off the stiffness in his back, then headed toward the barn. He found Lily there already, leaning on Clover's stall door with a pensive expression. The filly dozed on her feet, ears twitching at stray drips from the barn roof. Ebony dozed in the neighboring stall, tail swishing languidly. Lily turned at Archer's approach, her eyes keen. "Morning, Grandpa," she said. "Got a strange call earlier, before you were up." Archer raised a brow, unhooking a coil of rope from a nail on the wall. "What about?" "Seemed like it might be from one of those fancy horse farms a couple counties over. The woman who called mentioned hearing about Ebony's progress. Said she was curious if Ebony was for sale, or if we'd be open to a breeding lease." The rope slipped in Archer's hands. He scowled. "A breeding lease. They don't even know Ebony's background. She's barely recovered, and they want to use her for foals." Lily frowned. "I told her no, politely, but it's odd how word's spreading. Someone must be talking about Ebony like she's a novelty project." Archer exhaled, anger prickling at his temples. He knew the world of breeding farms was relentless, always seeking new genetics or a feel-good story. The idea of Ebony being shuffled off to strangers rankled him. If they call again, tell them firmly she's not for sale or lease, period. Lily nodded. "I did." They seemed disappointed, but said they'd keep in touch. That left Archer in a brooding mood for the better part of the morning. He tried to busy himself with chores, cleaning stalls, refilling water troughs, checking the barn roof for leaks. But each task felt tainted by the reminder that outsiders saw Ebony as a commodity. It echoed Clyde's attitude: horses reduced to profit or pedigree. Near midday, Lily finished grooming Clover and joined Archer by the corral. "We can't stop folks from hearing about Ebony," she said gently, sensing his tension, "but we can keep doing right by her. That's what matters." He rested a hand on her shoulder. "You're right. I just hate that people feel entitled to pry." To shake off the unease, they decided to give Ebony a short, gentle workout. Archer saddled her with the lightweight tack, leaving the girth loose. He walked her around the corral, letting her hooves find a steady rhythm in the moist dirt. Rain had softened the ground, making each step quieter. Ebony flicked an ear, inhaling the earth's scent. Lily stood at the fence, watching. "She's favoring that right shoulder less today," she said softly. "Look at the way she's placing her hoof, more even now." Archer nodded. Indeed, Ebony's gait seemed smoother. He guided her through a few circles, stopping and backing up. The mare responded with only mild hesitation. After several minutes, he paused, running his hand along her mane. "Good girl," he said. "No need to overdo it." As he loosened the cinch, he heard a faint sound drifting over the breeze, a vehicle approaching. Memories of Clyde's visits, the breeding inquiry, and unwelcome intrusions flitted through his mind. Lily shot him a questioning look. He placed a reassuring hand on Ebony's neck and exited the corral. A dust-covered SUV rolled up the drive, and a slim man in jeans and a clean button-down stepped out. He approached with a polite nod. "Mr. Cole, I'm Frank Grissom. I manage a therapy riding center in the next state over. I read about your mare, Ebony, in a local feature. I wondered if she might be a candidate for our therapy program once she's fully recovered. We specialize in rehabilitated horses." Archer felt his shoulders tense yet again, but this time the man's tone held genuine warmth, not greed. Lily joined him, curiosity in her eyes. "Therapy riding?" she asked. Frank nodded. "We take horses that have known hardship, help them learn to trust again, and match them with children or adults working through emotional or physical challenges. We often find that rescued horses have a unique empathy. They sense human struggles because they've faced their own." A pang tugged at Archer's chest. The idea of Ebony helping others was touching, yet he also couldn't bear to part with her. He cleared his throat, carefully choosing his words. "She's still on the mend, and we've no intention of giving her up. I appreciate your program, but Ebony's a permanent resident here." Frank raised his hands in a gentle gesture. "Understood. I'm not here to pressure you. I just wanted to meet her, and you. If she ever becomes stable enough and you'd like to do some collaborative work, maybe a traveling demonstration, we could set something up." Archer relaxed fractionally. "I see. Well, you're welcome to say hello, but we're not making any promises." Frank's smile remained genuine. Lily guided him to the corral. Ebony, still wearing the saddle loosely, eyed the newcomer, but stood calmly when Archer placed a hand on her withers. Frank approached slowly, letting Ebony sniff his palm. The mare's ears shifted, uncertain, but she didn't retreat. "She's got presence," Frank said softly, stroking the mare's flank. "A quiet strength. The people in our program could learn a lot from her." Archer glanced at Ebony's still visible scars. He remembered how, just weeks ago, she wouldn't let strangers within arm's reach. Now, she accepted this man's touch with mild unease, but no panic. A surge of pride swelled within him. They talked briefly about Frank's therapy center. He described wide pastures, gentle instructors, and specially trained horses who helped veterans, children with developmental challenges, and individuals overcoming trauma. Lily listened with rapt attention, her fingers absently combing Clover's mane where the filly stood nearby. Archer recognized the earnestness in Frank's voice. Yet the thought of Ebony leaving this ranch, even for a noble cause, felt like ripping out a newly healed piece of his heart. He remained polite but non-committal, thanking Frank for the visit. The man jotted down his contact information, extending it to Archer before heading back to his SUV. "I'll be in the area for another week," Frank said, "in case you change your mind about a visit or a future collaboration." Then, with a kind wave, he drove away, leaving Archer and Lily surrounded by the lingering hush of possibility. Once he was gone, Lily turned to Archer. "That was interesting. He seemed genuine. Therapy riding can be amazing for people in need." Archer looked away, unfastening the saddle from Ebony's back. "I know," he said. "But I'm not sending Ebony off. She's found her place here." Lily smiled gently, sensing the conflict beneath his firm exterior. "No one said you have to. Maybe someday we can arrange a demonstration or something. A day trip, if Ebony's comfortable. so others can meet her without her leaving home for good. He considered it, stroking Ebony's neck. She sighed contentedly. Maybe, he allowed. But first she needs to fully trust we won't abandon her. They led Ebony and Clover back to the barn, where Archer brushed them down. The mare's coat glistened with a healthier sheen than ever, and Clover nudged Archer's pocket, searching for the stray carrot he sometimes kept. He grinned, fishing out the treat. The filly munched happily, her eyes bright. In the following days, Archer began riding Ebony lightly around the corral for a few short minutes at a time, never pushing her beyond a gentle walk. That first time he settled onto her back, Ebony tensed mightily, her breath ragged. But Archer stayed calm, allowing her to feel his weight while Lily stood by with reassuring words. Soon, Ebony moved forward, steps hesitant, but without any frantic rearing or bolting. "All right, let's just circle once," Archer said, voice calm. He kept the reins loose, trusting Ebony to feel her way. She dipped her head, hooves scuffing the dirt in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Lily stood by, hands clasped, excitement dancing in her eyes. Archer completed half a circuit before dismounting, not wanting to strain Ebony's shoulder. The mare shook herself afterward, clearly relieved. Lily's joy was palpable. "Grandpa, you were riding her. Even if it was short, that's huge progress." Archer smiled, patting Ebony's neck. "She did the work, not me. She chose not to fear." Each day, they repeated the short ride. Archer increased the time in tiny increments, listening closely to Ebony's breathing and watching her gait. He kept the saddle light and avoided any weighty tack that might aggravate old injuries. By the week's end, Ebony had nearly shed all her initial panic about a rider's presence, though caution still lurked behind her eyes. Clover, not wanting to be left out, often trotted around the corral's perimeter while Ebony worked. Lily used the moment to train the filly in basic commands: halt, walk on, turn away. Now and then, Clover would zoom into a playful canter, surprising herself with a burst of energy. She'd come skidding to a halt beside Ebony, as though to say, "Look how fast I can be." Archer marveled at how the filly's confidence had grown with proper care and patient handling. The ranch hadn't heard from Clyde in quite some time, a fact that Lily counted as a blessing. Archer remained cautious, half expecting another proposal or snide remark. But the days stayed mercifully quiet, apart from occasional calls from acquaintances offering carrots, hay discounts, or requests to come observe Ebony's training. Word had indeed traveled, but most inquiries were respectful, and Archer had become adept at filtering out the questionable ones. Evenings found Archer and Lily relaxing on the porch, discussing small goals. They talked about letting Ebony tackle a gentle trail in the nearby woods once she felt fully stable, and perhaps setting up a basic obstacle course for Clover to explore. Over cups of tea, they shared hopes about what the future might hold. Each plan felt like a celebration of the horse's spirit. The ghost of Ebony's auction days seemed very far away, reduced to a distant echo in the face of her unfolding potential. One final chore before bedtime was always to check the barn, ensuring fresh bedding and full water buckets. Each night, Archer paused at Ebony's stall door, recalling how, in the beginning, the mare refused to let him anywhere near her with a brush. Now, she watched him with an almost soft curiosity, stepping aside to make room if he entered. Clover often peered over the stall divider, nickering at Lily for a bedtime pat. The steady routine lulled Archer into believing life had finally found an even keel. With each new dawn, Ebony's stride grew stronger. Clover's ears flicked with boundless fascination at every new sound. Lily's commitment never wavered, and Archer, though aging, felt rejuvenated by their unspoken gratitude, certain he'd made the right choice standing up for these two abandoned souls. One night, After Lily had turned in, Archer lingered under the stars. He sensed that things were changing, that perhaps a new chapter was about to open. He only hoped it would bring more triumph than hardship. In this delicate balance, a single disruption could unravel the progress they'd fought to achieve. Yet, he refused to dwell on the possibility of trouble. As the moon rose and cast its silver light upon the pasture, Archer closed his eyes and breathed deep. Hope stirred like a promise in the night air. At sunrise, a golden haze spread across Archer's ranch, illuminating the dew on fence rails and glinting off Ebony's sleek coat. Over weeks of careful training, the mare had transitioned from tentative steps to confident strides at a gentle trot. Clover, ever curious, trailed behind her, bounding about with youthful energy. In their quiet corner of the world, each day brought new assurances that these horses were healing, both in body and spirit. Lily was outside early, checking the water trough. When she spotted Archer heading to the barn, she beckoned him with excitement. "Grandpa, look at Ebony!" she called. The mare moved with an easy grace, hardly flinching when Lily ran a hand down her shoulder. She didn't even tense up, Lily marveled. "It's like she's forgotten what it feels like to be afraid." Archer peered at Ebony, recalling how her ribs had once shown painfully through dull fur, her eyes distant with old trauma. Now, she carried herself like a creature aware of her own worth. He exhaled, smiling. "She's come a mighty long way. Clover, too." As if on cue, the filly trotted in a circle, a playful squeal escaping her. She'd grown taller, her once gangly legs stronger and more coordinated. Lily approached with a lead rope, and Clover stepped forward, muzzle twitching at Lily's palm, anticipating a treat. Archer chuckled under his breath. "You've spoiled her," he teased. "Just enough," Lily retorted, rubbing Clover's forehead. "I think she's earned a little spoiling." The morning routine proceeded smoothly. Archer saddled Ebony for their daily ride in the corral, securing the tack with confident hands. Ebony shifted slightly, but no longer displayed the trembling anxiety she once did. Together, they walked for a minute, then eased into a slow trot. Lily clapped when Ebony maintained a steady rhythm. Archer's grin revealed his growing confidence, the old Tamer and the battered mare, working as one. Just as Archer finished dismounting, a cloud of dust rose at the end of the driveway. Both he and Lily tensed. A familiar pickup rumbled onto the property. Clyde stepped out, wearing a broad-brimmed hat and a guarded smirk. Archer stroked Ebony's neck, resisting the urge to bristle. Lily moved closer, as if preparing to shield the horses from whatever Clyde had come to stir up. Clyde sauntered over, glancing at Ebony's tack. "Didn't think she'd ever be rideable," he commented. "You sure you're not pushing your luck?" Archer maintained a calm tone. "She's doing just fine, Clyde." Unfazed, Clyde stuffed his hands in his pockets. "Heard rumors about some fancy therapy place looking to scoop her up. Also heard about that breeding inquiry. People sure have an interest in this mare." Lily squared her shoulders. "She's not on the market." "We've made that clear," Clyde shrugged. "Don't shoot the messenger. I just came to see how far you'd taken her training and to offer something." Archer stiffened. "We're not selling. Not asking you to," Clyde said smoothly. "But there's a show coming up in town next weekend. Basic demonstrations, local riders, nothing too extreme. They have a category for reschooled rescues. Figure Ebony might fit that slot, maybe show folks her progress." "Could be good publicity for you, and for her." Archer frowned, unsure if Clyde was sincere or simply seeking another chance to cast doubt. Lily exchanged a glance with her grandfather. In her eyes, Archer saw a flicker of curiosity. A show might be a chance to prove Ebony's transformation to the entire community, to everyone who once dismissed her. But the prospect filled Archer with caution. Entering a public arena was very different from a safe corral at home. "Why do you care?" he asked Clyde. "Never knew you to encourage an old man's training projects." Clyde smirked. "I might still think you're running on borrowed time, but if Ebony truly is as good as you claim, you'd be wise to show it. Besides," he added, tipping his hat, "I'll be there showing my own stock. If your mare stands out, well, I'll admit I was wrong." Lily saw a spark of challenge in Archer's eyes, something that seldom flared except under direct provocation. "Grandpa, maybe it's an idea," she said softly. "We've got a week. Ebony can handle a short trailer ride, and you'd only have to do a simple demonstration, right?" Archer rested a hand on Ebony's withers. The mare flicked her ears, calm and trusting. "She's not a show horse in the typical sense, and crowds might unsettle her. We can keep it simple," Lily pressed. "I'll go with you. We'll bring Clover along for companionship, but keep her out of the ring. Ebony might feel safer with Clover nearby." Something in Archer's chest tightened at the thought of Ebony stepping into an arena. Yet he recalled the small group of children she had faced with grace. If Ebony managed that, maybe a basic demonstration wouldn't undo her progress. Finally, he turned to Clyde. "We'll think about it. That's all I'll say." Clyde shrugged, but a hint of satisfaction crossed his face. "Suit yourself. The sign-ups close in 3 days. With that, he turned and ambled back to his truck, leaving a swirl of tension behind. For the remainder of the day, Archer mulled it over. Lily pointed out that Ebony's acceptance of new experiences had grown, and a modest event with quiet classes might be the next step in her journey. Archer, however, worried about triggers: a large crowd, loudspeakers, sudden applause. Ebony's scars might flare to life in the chaos. Finally, after supper, he agreed to give it a shot. "But if she shows any sign of distress," he warned Lily, "we pull out." "No trophies worth her trust." Lily embraced him, excitement humming in her veins. "You've got it. We'll keep her well within her comfort zone." Over the following days, they introduced controlled commotion in the barnyard, small gatherings of neighbors, recorded crowd noises played at a low volume. Ebony startled at first, but gradually settled, especially when Clover was nearby. Archer practiced loading Ebony into the trailer, ensuring she wouldn't panic at the closed space. She balked the first time, ears pinned and hooves stamping, but with gentle persistence, Archer coaxed her inside. By the third attempt, Ebony walked up the ramp with only mild hesitation. Word spread that Archer might be entering Ebony in the rescue horse category at the local show. A wave of support trickled in, from Randall at the youth program, from Dr. Emery, and even from Frank, the therapy center manager. Lily fielded well-wishing phone calls, while Archer remained stoic, focusing on Ebony's training. Clover, too, sensed the shift, nickering anxiously whenever Archer loaded Ebony into the trailer for a practice run around the driveway. Finally, show day arrived in a crisp dawn. Lily loaded Clover in a separate section of the stock trailer, thinking the filly's presence would calm Ebony's nerves. Archer's stomach fluttered with unease, but he maintained a confident air, not wanting to transmit his anxiety to the horses. They drove slowly into town, lines of trucks and trailers converging on the fairgrounds. The parking lot buzzed with riders tacking up, vendors selling tack supplies, and families milling about. Ebony and Clover stepped off the trailer with wide-eyed caution. Lily stroked Clover's neck, pointing out a small warm-up ring away from the hustle. Archer led Ebony there first, letting her sniff the new surroundings. The mare stiffened at the sight of so many horses and people, but Archer spoke softly, praising her for each calm step. Clover stood just outside the ring, ears pricked, drawing a measure of comfort for herself and Ebony alike. They had an hour before the rescue category began. Archer used the time to walk Ebony around, letting her observe everything. He noticed Clyde off in a nearby pen, exercising a sleek quarter horse. Clyde tipped his hat, an unreadable expression on his face. Archer ignored him, focusing on Ebony's breathing, the tension in her muscles, the flicker of doubt in her eyes. Slowly, she relaxed, muzzle lowering to the ground, an equine sign of tentative acceptance. Then came the announcement over the loudspeaker. Rescue horse demonstration in the main arena. All participants, please assemble. Lily squeezed Archer's arm. We've got this, she whispered. He nodded, heart pounding. With Ebony's bridle in hand, he led her into the arena, conscious of every step. The stands were modestly filled, friends, families, a few curious onlookers. At the far end, judges stood with clipboards, ready to observe how well each rescue horse moved under saddle and handled basic maneuvers. Archer's turn arrived in what felt like seconds. He gently mounted Ebony, her ears flicking at the sudden cheer. Easy, he crooned. It's just noise. The mare's sides trembled under his legs, but she didn't rear or bolt. A hush fell as Archer nudged her forward at a walk, guiding her around the perimeter. Ebony's stride was cautious yet composed. He stopped in front of the judges, executed a gentle turn, and moved off again. Applause rippled through the stands. Ebony flinched but carried on, guided by Archer's steady hand. The final test asked for a brief trot, a transition Ebony had been working on for weeks. Archer gave the smallest cue. For a moment, the mare hesitated, fear glinting in her eyes. Archer whispered, "Trust me," and she pushed into a light, unsteady jog. After a few strides, her rhythm steadied. Lily, watching from the rail with Clover, clapped with tears in her eyes. When Archer halted and dismounted, Ebony blew out a deep breath. The crowd broke into whistles and shouts of encouragement. Archer patted Ebony's neck, overwhelmed by gratitude. She'd confronted the very setting that once seemed impossible. Loud voices, an unfamiliar arena, and a rider on her back. Yet she emerged steady, unbroken by fear. Clyde, leaning against a fence post, gave a tight nod, some grudging respect flashing in his gaze. Archer felt no urge to gloat. He only cared that Ebony had proven her own courage. When the results were announced, Archer didn't expect first place. The show's ribbons felt secondary to Ebony's triumph. Indeed, she placed second, a neat red ribbon pinned to her bridle. People cheered as Archer and Ebony took a small lap of honor. He caught Lily beaming, and for a brief moment, he let the victory sink in. Not a victory over cynics or naysayers, but over the dark memories that once chained Ebony's heart. Later, loading Ebony into the trailer, Archer shared a quiet moment with her. He pressed his forehead to hers, feeling the comforting warmth of her breath. "They underestimated us both," he murmured. "But you showed them, didn't you?" Ebony's ears flicked, as though in agreement. Lily guided Clover aboard, the filly unaffected by the day's excitement, happy just to be near Ebony. As the trailer door closed, Archer looked once more at the fairgrounds. They'd entered uncertain, come away tested, and left triumphant not in the color of a ribbon, but in the unbreakable bond forged between an old horse tamer and a mare no one believed in. It was, indeed, an unforgettable lesson that patience and kindness could heal even the deepest wounds, transforming rejection into radiant possibility.